Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Frank Louie. I will be your moderator for today's session. Welcome to this webinar sponsored by the City of Los Angeles Department of Cannabis Regulation, Business Licensing and Compliance, also known as the BLC Assistance Program. BLC programming is designed to assist social equity applicants in Los Angeles in obtaining a commercial cannabis license and operating a successful cannabis business. This installment of our 2025 webinar series focuses on the Department of Cannabis Control, or DCC, state licensing. Now, before we get started, let's take a moment to review some housekeeping rules. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and can be viewed only on DCR's learning management system after the editing process. You will be muted with cameras off for the duration of the webinar. This means that your camera and audio functions will not be available to you during the session. However, you will be able to see and hear all the panelists. There's an open chat box where you can interact with one another for networking or comment on the information. Please use caution when sharing personal information in the public forum and keep your questions focused on today's topic. Please do ask questions about today's subject matter in the Q&A box below. We are gathering and responding to your questions throughout the presentation, and we'll have a Q&A session where you will get your responses in the last portion of today's event. You are encouraged to utilize the Q&A box at the bottom pane of your Zoom screen. And if you use that Q&A box for questions, everyone will be able to see the questions and the answers when they are responded to. Finally, please note that today's content was not created by the Department of Cannabis Regulation or the City of Los Angeles and is for informational purposes only. This information is subject to change and does not replace or supersede the Los Angeles Municipal Code nor constitute legal advice. If you have specific questions outside of tonight's topic, please call area code 213-978-0738 during business hours, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. to speak to a DCR representative. And now I'd like to introduce you to our guest presenter today, Michael Cheng. Michael Cheng has been Deputy Director of the Licensing Division for the Department of Cannabis Control since 2023. Michael previously served as a Policy Resource Branch Chief as a Staff Service Manager 3 in the Department of Cannabis Control Licensing Division. Before that, he worked as a licensing manager and licensing section chief within the California Department of Public Health's Manufactured Cannabis Safety Branch and licensing manager within Bureau of Cannabis Control. Prior to state service, Michael worked as an operations and financial analyst for several international technology and financial holding companies in Beijing, New York, and San Francisco, where he developed and implemented process management systems and caseload projection models. He has a master's of business administration from San Francisco State University. Now I'd like to ask Michael to join me on screen. Welcome, Michael, as always, and feel free to start sharing your screen and your presentation. And thank you.
Thank you, Frank. I guess it's good afternoon, everyone. How are you doing?
Great.
Awesome.
Great.
Thanks for having me. Really excited. Always looking forward to the opportunity to share with you guys what's going on with licensing here at Department of Cannabis Control. Thank you for the kind introductions. I want to, when Frank reaching out to me, say, hey, like it's time to do another panel section, and I was like, yep, it's perfect timing because we are down to almost 3 months left before the end of provisional license. So a lot of people are very anxious, especially for people within LA and or SoCal, that regarding to, hey, where the deadline is. I know there was a lot of scare of last year because we weren't really transitioning a lot of provisional license from LA or some other local jurisdiction, but mainly LA. So there was a lot of questions on where that is. So just want to share with you guys where we have been, where we are currently until the end of the year, how do we get here, and just want to share with you guys, and also like what are some of the requirements or something that's still missing that we needed for you to help you guys getting to the finish line. So this is an overview of the path to the annual license, and I will also use some opportunity to discuss If you are new to the market and you wanted to enter the market now, since we no longer can issue provisional license unless you are equity verified applicants, and I'll go into more detail on that. How do you guys can get to the finish line or to get into the market? So I'll just jump into it. So provisional license review and transition to annual license, that will be the main focus of my presentation today. Let me just move this over here. Should be getting that. So I'll be providing a very, very high level overview of provisional license key dates, provisional license renewal requirement, what are some of the statutory and regulatory requirements, Fish and Wildlife requirements, water board requirements, how do we transition annual license, as well as what will happen if you were not able to transition provisional license. So you know, provisional license, we start issuing it back in 2019. It was a way for a lot of transitions from temporary license to annual license. We are finding out there was a lot of businesses and licensee could not transition due to various reasons, specifically to CEQA. CEQA is in components that are required no matter what application that you are applying for. CEQA is a requirement that we need to meet in order for us to transition from provisional to annuals. Even if you already have a provisional license in hand, you need to still continue to diligently working with DCC or local jurisdiction to get us over the hump and get to the annual license. So back in July 1st, 2023, provisional license becomes subject to additional renewal requirements. So at the time of renewal, you are required to provide information related to CEQA to show that you are in progress with local jurisdiction or with DCC to get the annual requirements for CEQA. January 1, 2024, it was the last day for provisional cultivators that would result in operation equivalent to a large type 5 license. So if you have a type 5, this is the last day that you can apply and receive an applications in January 1, 2024. January 1, 2025, so beginning of this year, that was the last day that DCC allowed provisional license to renew. So if you had a provisional license expiring after January 1, 2025, you will not be eligible for renewal unless you transition your license to the annual license. We have not processed any renewal, granted any renewal of provisional license this year, except for the local verified equity applicants. After January 1, 2026, there will be no more provisional license in the California cannabis market unless you are an equity retailer that is qualified for local equity program. So I know there are some local jurisdictions that has a lot of equity licensee that for retailers. Oakland, San Francisco, LA, Sacramento are some of the local jurisdictions I know that they have quite a bit of local verified equity applicants. Even for those, they have different requirements that they still need to meet. When SB 51 passed 3 years ago, it allowed the local equity applicants that's holding a retail or non-storefront retail license to continue to operate under the provisional license. However, SB 51 required them to transition 5 years from their initial application, from their initial issuance date, or 2031, whichever is soonest. So if you have a provisional license currently that you receive as equity retailer, you can still continue to renew. However, the provisional license additional renewal requirements that implement in 2023, you need to meet, which means that you still need to continue diligently working towards the annual license. If you do not providing information upon our request or diligently working towards that, DCC can still take licensing action or prevent you from renewing that license. So please work with my licensing analyst when you're reaching out to getting information. A lot of you might wondering what SQL documents that I keep on mentioning for. So all license type must show progress towards SQL compliance through one of the following. The lead agency has prepared and circulated a negative declaration or mitigating negation declaration, or has determined that an EIR is required, has either made substantial progress in preparing an EIR or has contract in place for EIR preparations. Or the lead agency has conducted a reasonable, comprehensive site-specific review and deemed complete an initial study addendum or checklist, or has reviewed, prepared, and deemed complete a notice of exemptions. Using CDLA, for example, they have a citywide notice exemption process that they're currently working on. What's happening is that once the city has filed the notice of exemptions with the county clerk, they will share that information with DCC. They will send that information to you as a licensee or applicants. You will upload that information to our DCC online portal. Once we receive that and it's been recorded or recorded, then we will be able to transition your provisional license. If you are a brand new applicant that coming in, if you have initially project description with the local, with City of LA, and they give you guys or show that you guys are working towards that notice exemptions, you might qualify for provisional license if you are identified as local equity licensee and you are obtaining a retail or non-equity or non-storefront. However, this does not apply to what we call micro business. So if you are applying for micro business and you have an retail activity, you will not qualify for the provisional. You will only be qualified for the annuals. This is very specifically only to equity, retailer, and non-storefront. For SQL documents, when we received it, we'll able to issue you, and anything that you receive now is eligible for 5 year or 2031, whichever ending the earliest. Some of the applicable documentations that we accept is any environmental documents, such as the notice of exemptions, negative declarations, mitigated negative declarations, environmental impact report, and or initial study. Any staff report and related document prepared by local jurisdiction will also be qualifying. Any written transcript or minutes of a proceeding of the local jurisdictions can also qualify. Any notices issued by the local jurisdiction to comply with CEQA and the CEQA guideline. Any proposed decisions or finding considered by local jurisdictions by its staff or by the applicants. Any documentation of the local jurisdiction's final decisions. All these documents could consider provisional license CEQA documentation if you were obtaining new provisional or you needed to renew your provisional license before that. All the other licenses, you need all these documents in order for us to transition you into the annuals. A lot of these informations are very detail oriented. They are also available on DCC website. If you go to DCC website, you go to the top, there's a separate tabs, one for licensee, one for applicants. the information are in both locations. So I encourage you to go through that and feel free to reach out to DCC if there's any questions or additional information that you needed to move forward. Here are, I know a lot of you guys are mostly retailer or non-storefront or within the LA, or in the local jurisdiction that's is not cultivation heavy. But I still want to make sure that this information is shared with you all. So if you know anybody, you can share that information with them. Provisional license renewal, there are additional requirements and restriction for cultivations. One, the licensee must provide one of the following: a final lake and stream bed alteration agreement issued by Fish and Wildlife, a draft of the LSA agreement provided by the Department of Fish and Wildlife that has been signed and returned to DFW, a written verification from DFW that an LSA agreement is not needed. DCC cannot renew a provisional cultivation license if the State Water Resource Control Board has notified DCC of water code violations. The Department of Fish and Wildlife has notified DCC that any final LSC agreement is out of compliance. So those are the requirements that we asked people to provide information when we do transition from provisional to annuals, as that they are super critical to what we are hoping to accomplish on transitions. To transition to annual licensure, people ask, hey, so now if I meet all my requirements, how do I transition? One, licensee must meet all the annual requirements and may initiate transition to the annual at any time. So if you are ready to transition, on our website, we have posted what we call application checklist. Please go through that, make sure that there's every information that are checked off. If you have met all the requirements, then you can request the transitions. Secondly, log into our licensing system. Our licensing system will capture all the deficiency that is still outstanding, and then you need to be addressed. If those information are all met, and you have the secret documents, and your local already issue a local permit, or if the local already give you a local permit, then you can request a transitional provisionals. If it's a cultivation license, you would go through our licensing system and select amendment, science amendment to transition the provisional to annuals. If it's a non-cultivation license, then you reach out to the last licensing analyst that had reached out to you or send out information to you asking for deficiency, and that analyst would conduct the final review to make sure that all the information are met. And then once all the information are met, then they will be transitioning your provisional license to the annuals. Pursuant to state statute and DCC regulations, provisional license holder must actively and diligently pursue an annual license. For those locally verified equity applicants, even though you have 5 years, but every year you need to show that you have actively and diligently pursuing an annual license. If you don't, then DCC is subject to taking licensing actions against you and your provisional license. And that could result in different various licensing actions. To assist with the transition to annual licensure, DCC will send out notifications identifying any outstanding information needed to complete its review of the annual applications. In the last 3 years, DCC has done a lot with local jurisdiction and transition provisional license. And really appreciate to a lot of you or your friends. They have been very timely responding to the notifications. And we have successfully transitioned a big number of provisional license in the last 3 years. When DCC first consolidated, 75 back in 2021, 75% of our licenses are provisional license. We are now down to a little bit under 3%. We have 8,000 plus license in DCC pipeline right now. And provisional licenses only accounted for roughly 160. And this is also including provisional license equity like applicants. So we have made a huge change. Even with LA local jurisdictions, with the continuing effort that my team and LADC are constantly communications, work together, overcome obstacles, stay in touch, finding the right pathway. We had transitioned close to 1,000 provisional licenses into annuals. We've been working with LA on getting notice exemptions, and we have been transitioning provisional license that has met all the requirements in the last 3 years. And now I can say, and proudly to say, that we have a little under 50 provisional license in LA that is not equity, local verified equity applicants. So we definitely are making great progress in that front. And my goal, and I'm very optimistic that we'll be able to transition everyone into annual land, barring any other local compliance issue or licensing issue. So if you're good getting information that we needed, we are on path to transition you to the annual license. Some of you might have received what we call a provisional license review. So when a provisional licensee has failed to comply with the law or has failed to actively and diligently pursue annual licensure, DCC may suspend, revoke, or deny renewal of a provisional license. If DCC is considering suspending, revoking, or denying renewal of a provisional license, a notice of a provisional license review notice will be issued, identifying any violation or outstanding information and the way compliance may be achieved, and providing the provisional licensees with instructions on requesting an informal meeting with DCC to discuss the matter. If the DCC takes a licensing action such as suspension, revocation, or denial, the local point of contact will be copied on the notice of the licensee. Similar, in addition to the DC3 requirements, if we receive a notices from the local point of contact that you are no longer eligible to operate, or you have lost local compliance with local ordinances, DCC will also be moving towards revocations and annual denial of your applications. We have a lot of resources on our website. Like I mentioned it, our DCC website. It was under the licensee, there is a Canna Connect license resources. On it, it will show you a lot of information that we have. There's a guidance and checklist for applicants and licensees. It will also have all the information that we have recently updated or policy changes that DCC has made. One thing I wanted to share with you guys is that DCC has updated the contact types in both licensing systems. The update align with California Code of Regulations, Title 4, Section 15,000 to 17,905, and make contact options the same in both systems. If you wanted to contact us, I know a lot of times that you guys will be asking consultant or your attorney. We, DCC, can only communicate when the DRP, which is an owner or other owner, are on the call or including in the emails. DCC will not be able to communicate with us outside consultants on behalf of the business to discuss the detail of the business. This is make sure that we are getting consent for any changes that we are making are approved and requested by owner. So please keep that in mind when you guys do reach out to DCC. On our website, there's also a newsletter that you can sign up for. I encourage you to sign up so you can receive all the information that you needed. For provisional license, renewal requirements, secret review are all very, very critical. Make sure that you're getting that information to us. I also ask you guys to make sure that if there are any changes that happen to your business, whether it's contact changes, ownership changes, all the other information, please reaching out and let us know, because you are required to notify and and request to modify a license with DCC. We receive a lot of changes that do not come from the owners. Make sure that you're addressing that as well too. To submit, as I mentioned, to submit a provisional license to transitions, if you are cultivators, please log into licensing system and make changes via science amendments. During that time, you will be able to request transition provisional to annuals, and we'll be able to transition that to that part. For retail and non-storefront retailers, make sure that when you apply, you including your anticipated operation date. That is gonna really help DCC to understand when you'll be operating, so that because on our website, on DCC website, we also have a tool where people can look up your businesses, so people can easily to look it up. By having that information, we can definitely be able to utilize that information when we share that information to the general public. Provisional license for equity, that's something that we really want to highlight DCC continuing efforts. We currently also have equity fee relief that DCC equity fee relief program provides a fee deferral to any of the businesses that qualify for the DCC requirements. If you were negatively affected by the criminalizations of cannabis, you can apply to have your licensing fee deferred. If you are a verified local equity program participant, you can show you meet DCC equity requirement by using the equity fee relief request form on our website to submit an attestations. If you are not a verified local equity program participant, you must submit documents to show your eligibility for fee relief. You can check on our website to see if you're eligible for equity before applying. To apply for the equity fee relief, you need to gather the information necessary to establish eligibility. To complete the equity fee relief request form and follow the steps below to submit your request. It's also on our website. I will update this PowerPoint slide because there's something that I apologize, I forgot to add this one to the presentation, but it's super helpful for you all. That will share how to be eligible for equity fee deferral. To keep in mind, to apply for a fee deferral, you need to get all the informations. You will receive a notification of approval from DCC if it is approved. However, the equity eligibility is valid for 12 months, and licensee must reply each year for eligibility. And we currently, the fee deferral is for 6 months. So if you couldn't pay in 6 months, then you are subject to licensing disciplinary actions. So just keep that in mind when you apply for those dates. And that is actually the end of my presentations. I believe the next session is FAQ. So, Frank.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Always good information, and very succinct, and you referenced it many times, but the website has more information than anyone could ask for, and it's people need to continue to reference that. So appreciate that. So we've got several questions, a lot of questions and clarifications, but let me ask this first one. You did mention this a little bit, but DJ had submitted a question about. His question is, what about social equity licensees who have SB 51 right to renew provisional license until 2031? Just respond to that again.
Yeah, absolutely. So for SB 51, it allowed DCT to continue to renew a provisional license if you are locally verified equity applicants. So when we reach out to local jurisdictions or local organizations, we make sure that the local respond to us and let us know they are, or this business or this licensee is indeed a local, meet the local requirements. So unlike the equity fee deferral where a self-attestation is enough, for this one, we do require the local to flag to us. And in order for you to continue to renew under that, on the bill, you must maintain continuously as a local equity applicants or licensee. If you fall out of that local requirements, then you are subject to immediate regular requirements, which means that you might not be able to renew upcoming, or you need to transition as soon as you can. But as long as you are still equity, you are subject to you are still subject to transition to annuals, continue to operate as a provisional. For example, if you receive, we can still issue provisional license today, but in 5 years from now, 2030, you need transitions. Because the bill was passed in 2023. So we did not retroactively going back to, I believe, I think it was 2022 to 2023. So we did not hold people that received provisional back in 2019. We started it anew as 2022. So if you get license issued in 2021 as equity retailer, I think I'm pretty confident that we transition majority of them already. But if you happen to be the one that's still issued in 2021 that is still equity, we will kick off the 5 years starting 2020 when the bill passed. So it's not like, okay, I just lost 3 years because the bill passed, but we can continue to renew it. But you just need to show that you are still working with local. You're just not kind of blowing us off and to say, hey, I'm just kind of operating.
Yeah.
For the house.
So because it enables provisional licenses to extend through 2031, if you're a brand new verified eligible social equity participant and you want to apply for a license, you can apply actually for a provisional
Yes, you can.
As a new operator, right?
Yeah, as a new operator, you will apply. We don't really have what we call a provisional application or annual applications. All the application that submitted to DCC is considered annual applications.
Okay.
So it's very, very specific in the statute regarding to what is what requirements need to be met before we issue provisional. So it's not like someone coming in to DCC say, hey, I'm applying for provisional or I'm applying for the annual. You just apply for the annual license. But once you hit that certain threshold, DCC can issue you a provisional license so you can operating while you're getting the annuals.
Okay.
But we have I want to say in the last year or two, especially once LA has starting to moving a lot of their license into the pipeline, we have issued a lot of provisional. We have issued a lot of equity licensee straight to annuals. I know LA has prioritized a lot of equity applicants when it comes to scheduling for commission hearing, scheduling for CEQA exemptions. So if they moving it, they have the requirements, and they provided it. We wouldn't just issue them provisional. We go straight ahead and issue annuals because to be honest with you guys, annual actually has more teeth for you guys. Because annual with the annual license, you are not have the license that if DCC were to taking any licensing actions, you have the due process. You afford that due process. Because you have an annual license now versus provisional because there are a lot of DCC has more authority and power to taking immediate actions versus provisional versus annual. So I encourage you to get the annual as soon as you can because that actually is better for a lot of people.
Okay, that's great. And then, I mean, maybe this is a question, but and you kind of answered it on behalf of social equity verified applicants, but are there any exceptions to the January 1, 2025 provisional license renewal deadline?
No, so for January 1, 2025 deadline, is for its own. So anybody has expiration date of 2025, they must renew to the annual. They must transition to annual before we allow them to renew. So if you have expiration date that is in 2025 and you are still under provisional, the system will not allow you to transition. It has to be annual status in order for you to transition. However, we did set a system marker so that if we have flagged you as equity retailer, then we will lift that hold, allow you to renew. So,
Right.
and if you feel like you are locally equity applicant, however, we prevent you to renew, that most likely is because we did not receive confirmation from the local jurisdictions. So I encourage you to reach out to your local jurisdiction to have them reaching out to us. If we can verify that you are in the equity retailers, we can change your status and allow you to continue to renew up to 5 years from the initial issuance date.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, sometimes there's just, lack of communication and that information getting passed on to the right people, right? So that's a great point. And then another question here, how can I tell if I have an annual license or a provisional license?
So if you log into our licensing system, under license status, you will say either you are annual or provisional. Another quick way that I find it useful, I find that I use that all the time, you just go to search.cannabis.ca.gov. That's our unified licensing system. I encourage all the local jurisdiction to use it. It has all the licensing information on it. If you just type in your license number, it would quickly tell you whether you are annual or provisional license. That's probably the quickest way. Or if you go to your licensing system, and you go to the documentations and look up your latest system generated license certificates. The certificate, if it's a provisional license, will say provisional license on it. If not, it's just the annuals. But the quickest way is to go to our search.cannabis.ca.gov, and then we'll show that information immediately with you guys.
Okay, great. And I don't know if this question makes 100% is clear, but if I have a provisional license that expires after January 1, 2025, so obviously at some date this year, can I continue to operate after January 1, 2025? So maybe it's like a hypothetical. If I had one that expired on, July 15th of 2025 and it expired, the provisional.
Yeah, so I think the question that we continue to receive from a lot of people, because the statute and reg is not very, very clear. You just say provisional license cannot renew in January 1, 2025. So we have a lot of people that come to us and say, well, my license expired on October 1st. Do I need to cease operations in January 1, 2025? No, you can continue to operate up to October 1, 2025. You just cannot renew after October 1, 2025. So if you can renew transition before that, then you can continue to operate afterwards. So I want to let people do, because I think people are just worried that, oh, January 1, 2025 is the last day I can renew. So that means that we need to transition before that, or I cannot operate. No, you can still continue to operate until your last expiration date if you're provisional. But if you transition to annual, you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. And I assume there's expiration dates that run all the way through, September, October, November,
Yep.
December, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yep.
you'll go down to the wire basically on
Yeah, you get all the, yep. It's just we cannot, because starting January 2nd, 2026, there should be no more active provisional license.
right.
So therefore, we have to stop the renewing in 2025 so that people don't renew, because if they renew, because it's a 12 months licensing period. So anytime you renew in 2025, you will have an expiration date beyond January 1, 2026, and we can't allow to have
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Other than the social equity
Yes. Yep,
participants, right? Yeah.
that's correct.
Yeah. Okay. And then another question here, and maybe this is just a process question, how can I transition my provisional license to an annual license?
So this is really a process questions, and you're absolutely right. So as I mentioned, if you're a cultivation license, the designated the DRP, that's something that we constantly using. Is a designated responsible party
Mm-hmm.
who is an owner. It must reference all deficiency notice and submit any request documentation through online system. A process called the science amendment. Once they log in, they will locate the last deficiency notice. They will then select my license, locate that file, and then click on attachments. Once they submitted submit a request, once we receive that, we will reviewing it, and we will determine like, okay, yes, that all the information are met, transition you, or we'll follow up with additional questions. For the other ones, for the other non-cultivation license, if you have submitted information, because we DCC, we proactively also looking to see who has provided information, and we transition them. So if you feel like you already have sent out all the informations and you still have not transitioned yet, please email the information to info@cannabis.ca.gov,
Mm-hmm.
and then someone will be able to look it up. Or if you happen to have the latest deficiency notice that we send out to you guys, you usually most likely came from a licensing analyst,
Mm-hmm.
and that licensing analyst can also help you to look into the situations. And if it is meet the requirements, then we'll go ahead and issue the provisional license to you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So you really have to stay on top of, the portal, be in the portal and make sure you're, looking for communication both ways, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And stay on top of that. Good. And then what if, we're hoping and optimistic that they all get transitioned, but what if they fail to transition to an annual license before the provisional license expires in 2025?
I want to not put a scare on you guys, but I also wanted to make sure that there is still another pathway. It's not the end of the world, but it's something that it is a little bit serious. So if you did not transition your license before your expiration date, you have to cease operations.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have a valid state license, even though you might still have the local permits, you have to stop operating. If you don't transition it beforehand, your license is considered expired, and we will be moving towards an annual license denial of your application, so we can close that out. If you cannot transition your license, if you know that you cannot transition your application and you are still like in the local permitting process, my suggestion is, instead of just letting license expire, I would recommend that you surrender or withdraw your applications so that we can close out your existing pipeline, and then you can reapply once the application is once you are meeting the permits, because as I mentioned before, you are required to actively and diligently, right, to meet the requirements. And if application is not meeting the requirements and we have moved into other, compliance issue, due to local non-compliance or non-responsiveness, my suggestion is that you move ahead with, withdraw the application at any time before DCC deny the applications. This one it just make it a lot easier. I know there's a lot of perceptions in the past that, oh my God, DCC taking so long to receive to apply applications. If I withdraw, how long will it take for me to get my application all over again, right? I want to just share with you guys that that was indeed the case before. However, it was due to the just majority workload. When we first consolidated, or even when license first issued, there was a huge number of people that wanted to enter into the cannabis market. So everybody just all piled in at the same time. We were dealing at the most pipeline that I managed. We have over 13,000 licenses in our pipeline. And it's just a number of the different mandate, different professional that we keep on having to pivot between new apps and transitions. And we were just not getting, which I admit, we weren't turning out enough, fast enough. But with the new application now, especially now we're only down to 130 professional licenses now, I have seen in the last couple of months that we have issued a brand new license from submission to issuance, an annual license in 6 to 8 weeks. So we have been transitioning a lot quicker. Obviously, there's a lot of dependency. I want to be transparent with you guys. There's a lot of dependency outside of DCC control. One is how fast can local jurisdiction provide the responses. And if you are brand new applicants, that never received DCC license before, the fingerprinting, the FBI DOJ result might taking something out of our control. And one thing that I always tell people is that we can only review as fast as we have the information. So if we determine that there's a deficiency, then we request it. The sooner you respond to us, the sooner that we can do a subsequent review and make sure that we have information. We also have a pipeline, so we know that people are busy running businesses, so they might not responding enough on a daily basis. So just trying to get this information as fast as we can, but also also it does take some time for us to reviewing as well too, even subsequent one, because we have other applications that we're reviewing, but we are usually have pretty good, much quicker turnaround time now on review. So if you were to come back to the market, we do anticipate that the review will be a lot quicker.
Yeah, well, that's really good news, right? And Michael, what should someone do if the DCC terminates their provisional license because either they can't or choose not to transition to an annual? Obviously before the license expires, but
yeah. So if DCC terminated your provisional license for any reason, you must sell or destroy all the cannabis and cannabis product on the premises. Before the license become inactive, because you are not allowed to have any. Because once the license is terminated, you're no longer considered to have an active license. So therefore, that's not a official premises locations. If DCC terminate your license and there's still cannabis and cannabis product remaining on the premises, a licensed distributor or micro business authorized for distributor may obtain approval from DCC to buy and distribute your inventory. So if you're like, I need to work it out, you can still get it to a distributor, but you need a DCC prior approval. Otherwise, it's considered diversion for product. Distributors and micro business that authorized to engage in distribution may request approval to purchase from DCC but the request must be completed within 14 calendar days of licensing terminations. After 14 days, after 14 days, if there's still product in there, DCC will conduct disciplinary actions if they're still on site and or go on site and destroy the product.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's interesting that you can, there's kind of that exception to maybe, you know, get your final inventory, distributed, right?
Yeah, because sometimes we understand it's not,
Because it happens fast. Yeah.
sometimes things happens.
Yeah.
Business to make some choices, so they can certainly be moving
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah. And then I know that, once a license is not renewed by DCC, I mean, there is an appeal process. And maybe you can speak, can you just discuss the appeal process and maybe the expected time to go through that process? And do you advise applicants, what should they do to prepare for that? Because sometimes people just want to, challenge the state's denial, right?
Right. So what will happen? I think because this is more on the legal side, I'll just kind of go over very, very high level. So for DCC taking any licensing actions that is towards the annual licenses, which either is revocations of annual or a new application or denial of denial of annual applications, licensee do have the appeal process. They do have appeal rights. They are eligible to submit a request to appeal a decision that DCC has made. On the applications, or on the denial or the revocation, there is a language on it that will instruct you how to appeal that process. However, this is only afforded for licensee that are that holds an annual license or its annual actions. And then that case is that if they were to appeal, if you were to appeal, then we will be moving it towards our legal team will then start working with AG's office, going with the Cannabis Appeal Board to review the cases and make final determinations. But as far as what that entail, I don't have that information to share.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. At least some clarification. I know the variables are very broad and there can be all kinds of circumstances, but we certainly appreciate that. Well, Michael, that's all the questions. So, I want to just, again, thank you for your participation. You've always been a valuable, participant to help educate the business community out there and social equity verified applicants. And, it's valuable to keep the knowledge and information flowing. So I want to thank you again for presenting. I want to thank everyone for attending this informative webinar offered by the City of Los Angeles Department of Cannabis Regulation. This webinar recording will be found on DCR's Learning Management System. If you have any questions on accessing your account, please email dcr.sep@lacity.org. I want to thank you again for joining us, and everyone have a wonderful day. Thank you.